Hello friends and Happy New Year. Last time we talked about Sonic was about 2 years ago when I shared my thoughts on Sonic 2. Now back then I said, well actually let's just run it back. Sonic 2 managed to do what Sonic 1 did for me, and that is to have me looking forward to the next installment and the future of the franchise. And if you saw the last video, we talked about Morbius and the credit scenes. Yeah, this is how you do a credit scene. Absolutely fantastic, and I cannot wait to see the next movie. Yeah, I know that audio quality is crazy, but how crazy is it that I can say all of that again? I was in the theater completely losing my mind. Hey movie lovers, welcome back to Green Hills and welcome back to another episode. It's your movie buddy here, and if you caught the annual recap episode, then you already know we're going to talk about one of my favorite movies of 2024. Whether you're a longtime subscriber or follower, or you are here with me for the first time, I am thrilled to have you here. If you are looking for detailed plot breakdowns, you won't find them here, but stick around for my spoiler-free thoughts and honest opinions. Usually I talk about the latest releases, but right now I'm just trying to catch up with the last 2 movies I watched in theaters in 2024. And if you're here with me on YouTube, you can find timestamps in this video's description to jump straight to the sections that you're most interested in. New reviews drop every Friday, so hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow on Spotify to stay updated. Any TikToks or articles I mentioned will be linked in the description below. With that all out of the way, let's get into today's episode on Sonic 3. Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails reunite to battle Shadow, a mysterious new enemy with powers unlike anything they've faced before. With their abilities outmatched in every way, they seek out an unlikely alliance to stop Shadow and protect the planet. You already know we're going to get into the themes of the film, or at least my take on it. Sonic 3 finally introduces Shadow, and with his introduction comes all of the emotions. I love that this movie really tried to dig into those deeper emotions. Did it succeed entirely? Well, actually, yeah. I mean, it's a very basic exploration of these emotions. It catches the broad strokes of these themes, but remember, this is a kid's movie. I mean, as a millennial, I am obsessed, but at the end of the day, it's meant for kids to understand too. That's what I'm trying to say. So is it super complex? No, but it goes there in a way that's very in line with what the franchise has given us so far. It's like a natural evolution, while still feeling like we're exploring new territory. While these themes are easy for the kids to understand, we can always read into it and overthink. I love the thought of who you would become if you didn't have your support system around you. Life is about the choices you make, and as long as you listen to your heart, you'll make the right choices when it matters most. And don't let your pain change who you are. Don't let the pain you feel from loss overshadow love. The quote from the movie, "The light shines even though the star is gone," be for real right now. I was in my feelings because it's when a theme hits close to home like that, I am done for. I think having a strong support system is so important, and this is shown throughout not just Sonic 3, but the entire franchise. Having a solid foundation or people around you that can help to rebuild or strengthen your foundation is incredibly impactful to who you'll become. I love that we get to see this idea represented through several characters, but of course, Shadow and Sonic. It's how their lives, that support system or lack thereof, is extremely different, and how Shadow's past informs his present that makes the story and characters so engaging. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and then we'll get into my final thoughts. Taking a look at what works in this movie, a lot works incredibly well. I really had so much fun watching this movie, and do not get me started on the Easter eggs. I'm going to start going off on a tangent, focusing on the good. I love the scene changes in this movie. I was so surprised at some of the scene changes, and when we went from a flashback to the present or vice versa, it was such a visual treat. The look of this movie really stands out. The camera work is so good in general, but I also really love when it's used for comedy, like a slow or fast zoom. I also wouldn't be talking about a Sonic movie without reminding everyone that the character designs are incredible and how we could have so easily had ugly Sonic. Bless the guy, But as a fan, this is what we deserve, and I'm glad the internet bullied the studio into a redesign, and more importantly, the studio listened to the fans and they just continue to come out with fantastic movies. Now we can finally talk about Keanu and Shadow. I love this pairing, and Shadow's introduction really changes the tone of the story, adding more layers, tension, and depth. I love seeing Sonic being pushed by Shadow throughout the film, especially at the end. Shadow is strong, and complex, really challenging Sonic and Sonic's beliefs. This gives us a chance to see another side of Sonic that we haven't really had the chance to see much of, seeing him more open and looking inward. I rambled a little. Keanu as Shadow. Shadow sounds like Keanu, and we have talked about this before in the Transformers 1 episode about letting voice actors voice act, but on the other hand, I mean, you can hear the emotions and the depth of the character, not just in Keanu's voice work, but Idris Elba as Knuckles as well. I did do some Googling, and Ben Schwartz and Colleen O'Shaughnessy have done plenty of voice work, and Colleen has also been the voice of Tails for like 10 years, so the two of them as Sonic and Tails respectively are fantastic. But Keanu and Idris actually fit in very well. Touching back on the tone of the story and the themes before we move on, I really think it's the emotional core of the story that really make it stand out and make it yet another excellent installment into the franchise. Yes, the movie is funny and we have references to Pokemon and Hot Topic, but it's the core of friendship, teamwork, growth, and that ever-present conflict between light and dark. There are several moments that are heartwarming and several moments that really pull you into the film and get you even more invested into the characters, their relationships, and the story. But did those silly moments threaten to pull you out of the movie though? We're gonna get into some criticisms about the movie and I will share my thoughts. So let's talk about it. I saw a comment that said, quote, "The trailers exclusively used the best elements of this film to trick people into thinking it would be a more mature, action-packed, emotional ride than the previous two films. Instead, it was 90% Jim Carrey making a fool of himself while Hedgehogs uncomfortably watched. It's clear that the writers had no interest whatsoever in the franchise they were trying to represent. Instead, all their effort went toward making Jim Carrey as funny as possible." End quote. I'm not gonna lie, I think there's a moment in Sonic 2, not about Jim Carrey specifically, but there is a moment where the humor or a moment just goes on for too long. It was funny for a minute, but it just kept going, and I'm like, hey, let's not do this anymore. I think Sonic 3 does have these moments as well, where I found myself thinking, how long is this going to go on for? And there are a handful of lines of dialogue that I just wish were not in the film. That said, I wouldn't say that people should feel tricked. Okay, I can't tell people how to feel, but to my point, if you've seen the previous two films in the franchise, then you should expect that silly, fun, over-the-top humor. The movie actually is more mature, even if it is just a bit. It is action-packed and an emotional ride. On a rewatch, it still resonates with me. Did they make Jim Carrey as funny as possible? Yes. Was it over the top sometimes? Yes. Finishing this section off, I saw so many people complaining because the movie doesn't follow the video game storyline beat for beat. If you don't know, Sonic 3 is inspired by the video game Sonic Adventure 2, which is a 2001 platform game developed by Sonic Team USA and published by Sega for the Dreamcast. I listened to some of my previous episodes on the podcast this past week at work, and we actually talked about this in the Wild Robot episode because people were not happy that the movie was not the exact same as the book. These movies take inspiration from the source material. They are not an exact copy of the source material. I think if you're expecting the exact same storyline as the video game, then you'll be disappointed. The movie did change some things, but I think everything made sense, and it's still a good story. I haven't played the game in a very long time, so my memory of it is pretty much non-existent, but if you're familiar with the storyline and you haven't seen the movie yet or you're waiting to watch it, then I would just keep this in mind. Now, let's wrap up with my final thoughts on the movie. After discussing its key elements, the real question remains, is it worth your time? In my opinion, yes, this movie is absolutely worth your time, whether you have kids with you or not. I mean, as a fan, I absolutely would say that it's worth your time. Sonic 3 manages to do what Sonic 2 and Sonic did, and that is make me look forward to the future of the franchise. Pop Culture Brain on TikTok said that Sonic 3 has a, quote, more thrilling mid-credit scene than anything Marvel has given us in years, end quote. Now you guys know how much I love the MCU, but I actually agree with his statement 100%. The way this movie was pulling stuff out of the archives for me. I was really into Sonic back in the way back, and when I watched Sonic 3 in theaters, there were so many Easter eggs that I picked up on that I didn't even know I had buried in my memory, and I was losing it. I think as a fan, I would call myself a casual fan, and I think if you're even more of a fan, there are so many cool references and things from the costumes to the poses that will be so exciting to see on the big screen. Earlier, we did talk about Jim Carrey as Ivo Eggman Robotnik, and we must continue. He's incredible in these movies, and to be honest, the fact that he continues to do just these movies is iconic. He is scene-stealing and hilarious. We already talked about how some of the humor, jokes, and silly moments go on for too long, but some of those funny moments truly stick the landing. Not only that, but he also delivers an emotional, nuanced performance in Ivo and a layered performance in Gerald. It's more than just shenanigans. I also really love the relationship that he managed to pull off between Ivo and Gerald. I also really love the chemistry between Eggman and Agent Stone. Lee Majdoub is also serving emotion and layers. He gets his own little story and arc, and I love it. I wish Kristen Ritter had more screen time, and unpopular opinion, maybe? I mean, I've said this before. I really like Tom and Maddie, James Marsden, and Tika Sumpter, respectively. Clearly, I had some final thoughts that I just had to throw in at the last minute, but overall, Sonic 3 is an outstanding movie. It does what it does so well. It's the visuals, the action, the compelling story, and seriously, the Easter eggs and references and the credit scenes. The credit scenes are so good. When I tell you guys I was losing my mind, I was losing my mind. If you enjoyed the first two movies, then you're probably gonna like this one too. But if you're looking for a beat-by-beat film adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2, this isn't it. Compared to previous installments, this movie is a little darker and it raises the stakes for the characters, not just good versus bad, who you've become and who you have the potential to be, but friendship and family too. This movie is packed with humor, heart, solid visuals, and the music is fantastic. I cannot wait to see what happens next. I mean, we have some ideas, right? I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to spoil anything, and we need to wrap this episode up, but we'll see. Sonic 4 is currently in the works, and according to an article by Variety, they're aiming for a spring 2027 release. So I'll see you then, and we're going to talk about it, you guys. I am so excited. All right, movie fans, last time we talked, it was for the annual recap episode where I took a look at the highs and lows of the movies that I watched in 2024. If you're listening to today's episode on Spotify, the annual recap episode is only available on YouTube, so if you'd like to check it out, I will leave a link in this episode's description. If you're catching today's episode on YouTube, you can click the link in the top right corner of this video to watch that one. Now, this is where I usually talk about what's next, but I don't actually have tickets for anything yet. I will post my thoughts on Nosferatu next week, and oh my gosh, you guys, that movie was so much more divisive than I thought it was going to be. But we'll talk about that next week. I want to see Wolfman, so I'll probably get tickets for that one soon. Ooh, and have you guys seen the new trailer for Companion? I was already interested in that movie, but that trailer? I mean, it's good, right? But they gave so much of the plot away. Anyway, as always, a huge thank you to everyone who has stuck around with me to the end of today's episode. Let me know what you thought of Sonic 3. Do you love this movie as much as I did, or was it a total miss for you? Were you expecting more of the video game's storyline to make it into the movie? What are your thoughts on Jim Carrey's performance? Too silly, too over the top, too much? Do you think Shadow should have had more screen time? As a movie fan, I actually think he was used really well, and he is still so impactful to the story and to Sonic. But as a fan of Shadow and Keanu, I'm gonna need a movie or a TV show or something. Who's your favorite character in Sonic 3? I know my answer by now is probably obvious. Shadow was my favorite back in the day, and after seeing the movie, I know how to pick him. Shadow is still my favorite character. Let me know who your favorite character is, let me know your thoughts on Jim Carrey's performance, or just let me know your thoughts on the movie in the comment section on YouTube, and if you're on the Spotify app, swipe up and let me know what you're thinking. Your feedback is always appreciated, so let's get the conversation going. I would love to hear from you. And if you're enjoying the movie talk on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and ring that notification bell to stay updated. If you enjoy on-the-go listening, then you should check out the podcast, especially so you don't miss out on those podcast exclusive episodes. Tune in every Friday for new episodes, and hey, if you're on Instagram, follow me at a.rocket.review for more updates and to read my reviews. Your support, whether on YouTube, the podcast, or Instagram, really helped this community grow, and it means so much to me, and I cannot thank you enough. Until next time, spread positivity, be safe, take care of yourself, happy movie watching, and Happy New Year! I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye!